Hello, everybody. Hopefully, this is coming through on LinkedIn. My name's Stuart. This is a how-to webinar for Patronum. This is one of a series of how-to videos that we're going to be doing, or webinar sessions that we're going to be doing. The idea being that we're going to pick individual features, benefits, or functions in Patronum and just do a session on that piece in particular. Really, we want to be able to give you sort of bite-sized bits of information that you can then take away. These will be recorded, you can play them back at your leisure, and focusing in on things that are going to make you more productive. So this one, as you can see on the screen, hopefully is all about email signature management. We're going to run through how you can automate the standardization of your email signatures using Patronum in Google Workspace. How to present kind of a consistent brand message using the email signatures, as well as just being able to edit individual signatures if that's what you're looking to do. We'll show you a few tips and techniques for getting the most out of it, particularly when it comes to hosting images and putting images into your email signatures to do that in the most efficient way. And making sure that you can display the right kind of information, even if somebody doesn't have everything that you might expect in their profile. So let's dive right in. I'm going to switch what you can see on the screen here to Patronum itself on this tab. Where I am here is just in the people section in Patronum. I'm looking here at a user called Anne Moore, as you can see. And along the tabs here, I can see her profile information. I could edit all of that, but I want to jump straight in here and have a look at her email signature. And what we see here is a representation of what that signature is going to look like. And I could manipulate that and edit it just here, just for Anne. So if you wanted to give people the flexibility to manage their own signatures, but on the odd occasion you need to make a change for somebody, you could just use Patronum in that way. But actually the real power of using Patronum comes from implementing a policy that enforces an email signature across a whole cohort of your users. Now that cohort could be the entire organization if you want to have a completely standard signature for everybody, or you could break it down and apply it only to a subset. Where are we going to do that? Well, we'll go to the policies area on the left here, and you'll see all your existing policies in here. I'm going to go right ahead and create a brand new policy to show you the process. So we've got this blue action button on the right here. I'll click it, add a policy. I'm just going to give it a name of demo signatures. I could give it a description if I needed to. Now, in this case, Patronum comes in a couple of flavors. The basic flavor allows you to create policies that apply to people or user effectively, anything that's driven by the user directory. Or Patronum Plus allows you to also create triggers that are driven by drive content, files and folders and so on. As this is email signatures, that's obviously a people-based thing, so I'm just going to select directory as the trigger. Click on save. And it's going to take me into the policy where I can now start scoping out who I want this policy to impact. So that's in this scope area here. So by default, it's going to impact all users in my domain. I'm going to narrow that down a little bit just to show you how you can do that. And I can choose specific organizational units or specific groups to include, and I can also choose groups or org units to exclude. So I can start with a wide scope and then filter out users that I'm not interested in, or I can start with a narrow scope and include those I am interested in. So I'm going to just go for a test organizational unit here that I've got, an OU, SC test OU, just to show you how that can show in there. And you can have multiple ones of these, so I could build this up to create a list of cohorts that I'm interested in. I can click on the preview button down here to see a list of the users that this policy is going to target to make sure I've got the right ones. So I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to jump into the signature. All these other tabs, these are for another day. These are other topics that we'll get to on other webinars, I'm sure. But I'm going to jump straight in and look at the signature here. Now in this policy, it's a brand new policy, so it's blank. I'll show you that I could start from one of our predefined templates, if you like. So I can click on here to choose from a series of templates that we've provided to you. And this is a good way of getting you started. And it's actually a good way of seeing how templates or how email signatures are constructed and how the HTML code is put together. So for argument's sake, I'm just going to go with this one. So I'll click on add down here. Oh, by the way, I should point out that with these templates, we allow you here to change the font styling and the colors for the various bits and pieces to match your own branding. I'm just going to leave it as is here. Click on add. Now, what you see immediately is that the structure of this signature is using these variables, really. So for first name, we have a variable called f name. For last name, we have a variable called l name, and so on. And these are formulated in these curly brackets, or sometimes it's called mustache notation because the curly bracket looks a little bit like a mustache on its side. And of course, what will happen then when this policy runs, it will pull out the real data from each person that's in scope and replace these variables with that person's details. And we can see exactly what happens there. Down in the bottom right here, let me see if I can bring it into the screen. I think my picture's in the way. Can I move myself to a different part of the screen? Not sure I can. Hang on. No, I'm not sure I can. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I shall shrink this. Yeah, shrink this a little bit and then bring this over here. There we go. So now you can see that the preview button here allows me to click on that, and I can now type in a username to see how this signature is going to look in using their details. So for argument's sake, let's pick my user Dean here. And you can see all of those variables get replaced with Dean's details. And if I change that to Anne, it all gets replaced with Anne's details. So nice and straightforward. So if all you want to do is get started, get a nice looking signature, that's a great way to start just with these templates. But if you want to edit it more yourself, we provide these tools. Just like any sort of text editor or word processing kind of editor, you'll be familiar with these tools for choosing your font and the size and bold and italics and all of that kind of good stuff to format the signature exactly the way you want it. If you want to get really detailed about things, you may prefer to work in the source code. If you've got HTML and styling, CSS styling skills, you can click on the source button here and you'll get a split screen view with the real signature as it would look in the right hand side, and then the HTML code on the left. And we'll come back to that in a moment because there's some useful things that we can do in there. Some additional buttons that we provide on the toolbar here. Let me I'm going to empty everything out just so we can see exactly what these do. So I'll empty the signature out. We've got buttons for inserting some of those variables. So the personal menu here allows me to pick things like F name for first name and L name for last name and so on. So I don't need to initially remember what all of those variables are because they don't always match exactly the text that you would expect them to match. So L name rather than a last name, for example. So that's why we provide this long list here. And there's a lot of the personal list is all the information that you would find in an individual's profile. The company list is stuff that you might find associated with the company as a whole. So this is information that you would have applied at a company level, maybe in the settings here in Patronum. So things like the company address, the company phone number, and what have you. So if I put in, say, company phone as an option here, you can see how that is represented. We also provide a button to pop in any social links that you might have. So Facebook, LinkedIn, X, etc. And you can just tick off the ones that you want to include in your signature here as appropriate. Again, assuming you've put that information into the company profile, it'll be pulled out of there and popped into the signature with an appropriate styling icon. So you can see here, we've just got sort of basic, simple icons here. We can choose to have them in a circle style, solid circle style, and so on. So whatever sort of more suits your branding, you can pick from those, and then that'll pop those into the signature as well. There you go. Right, just going to wipe everything out again, so we're starting with a nice clean space. There's one particular variable that we need to pay close attention to here, and it's the one for pronouns. So quite common these days for people to display what their preferred pronouns are, maybe in their email signature and elsewhere. And we have it in the menu item here. And when we pop it in, it will pop in a variable called pronouns. But I just want to point out to you that if you go to your Google account page, you can find this normally by clicking your Google icon in the top right-hand corner, your profile icon, and clicking on Manage Your Account. And you'll find here in your personal info section, you've got an option here to put in pronouns. Now, for reasons known only to Google themselves, this is not the same as the pronouns information that you will find in the Google Workspace directory. So this is manageable by any user using a Google account through this account area here. But anything they pop into here will not be reflected back in the Google Workspace directory. So what we do, we provide in Patronum a feature where in your profile you'll find that you'll find a gender field that you can fill in, and you'll find a pronouns field that you can fill in. Okay, and in the Google directory itself, if you're interested in what it is, it's I think it's called address me as. So the actual field, I don't think I've got it open here, but no, the actual field in the API reference is called gender.addressmeas, and that's the field that we use in Patronum. So let me just quickly show you where you would do that. If I go back to people, and let's find, say, Anne again. We're going, oops, clicked on my link instead of clicking on her thing. Right, there we go. So you'll see here we've got gender and pronouns in the, it's actually in the profile information. So I scroll down a little bit. My mouse wheel is a bit sticky, so I'll put down here. Here we go. So we provide these fields, gender and pronouns, and once those are populated, you'll then be able to use those in the policy. I'll go back to my policy, to my signature, and we'll be able to pop them in. Okay. There's methods for putting images into signatures, and you might, there's, to my way of thinking, there's a right way and a wrong way of doing it. The wrong way, really, and this is true of any email signature on any platform, is to sort of drop an image into the email and it becomes an attachment to that email. There are a couple of things wrong with doing it that way. The first is that it means that that image is sent along with the email every time you send it. So you're adding weight to the email, you're adding bits and bytes and kilobytes to the email because you're having to send an image with it every single time. And that wastes resources because everybody that receives that email now has a copy of that image attached in their mail system as well. The other problem with it is that if you're doing a search in your email and you're looking for emails with attachments, which is a common thing to do, it means that every single email has got an attachment on it because your image was attached. So the preferred way of doing it is to link to an email that is hosted somewhere. Now you may have a public website where you've got all of your sort of brand imagery and so on hosted, and that's great. You can link to that. And we provide a button on the toolbar here where you can insert an image and you can paste your URL from wherever you've got your publicly hosted imagery. You can paste it in there, and then the image will show up in your email. Again, benefit of that is the recipient will receive that email. They'll pull the email using the URL link, and then it'll be cached on their system. So the next time that they receive an email from you, they will display the branding and the imagery using the cached copy of it. So it just all saves bandwidth. You can use Google Drive to host these images. There's a couple of steps that we need to do to prepare for that, because those images have got to be publicly accessible to the recipients of the email. So we need to make sure of that. And then there's some little tweaks that we need to do to the URL formatting for that. Fortunately, Patronum provides all the necessary tools to do that automatically for you. So we've got another button here called Insert Image, and it uses the Google Drive icon. So what this is going to do for us is going to insert an image that we've got in Google Drive. I'm just going to flip to my Google Drive tab here to show you I've got a folder called SIG Images, and I've got a few random images sitting in here. The key thing is I need to make sure that this folder is shared so that anybody on the internet with the link can access the images in it. I could do it on the individual images themselves, but I prefer to do it at the folder level. And then if I replace these image files with an updated brand or a different image, I don't have to remember to change it. So over here in the sidebar where I've got Manage Access, you'll see that we've got this little icon of the globe. And that is showing that anyone on the internet with the link can view these things. And just like any other Google Workspace sharing process, you can change that, and this is the key thing here. By default, of course, it's going to be restricted to only people I share with if it's in my drive. So I've changed that to anyone with the link, and I've said they can only view. No reason to give them anything other than view access. So once I've done that, I'll come back to my policy, and I want to insert an image. I'll click on the little drive icon. It'll open up the browser to my Google Drive, and let's start with this one called company logo for argument's sake. Select that, and what that's doing is manipulating the URL to display the thing. I'll show you why, what we actually have to do. If I were to go to the image itself, and let's say I was going to grab this image and I could say share and copy the link. Okay, so now I've got the link on my clipboard. If I go to another tab and paste in that link, when I view it, it's fine. I see the logo, but I also see all of this other stuff around the top here because we're in the Google Drive viewer really here. So the manipulation that Patronum is doing, you could do yourself actually. What you need to do is this little bit here where it says file/d/ has got to be changed to thumbnail $ID equals. Okay, so once again, the file/d/ gets replaced with thumbnail $ID equals, and then you're basically pointing to the ID of this file. We can also remove the /view from the end. So if I update the URL that way, you see that what we get is a clean copy of the image without all of the peripheral bits and pieces from the viewer. And that manipulation, URL manipulation, is exactly what Patronum is doing when you use the button in the toolbar here. Okay. So I'm going to show you another couple of tweaks that we can do with that. So I'm going to use a different image that makes it clearer. So I'm going to go through the process again, pick up my drive file. I'm going to use this circle in a square image. So we see that. And if we look at the source code this time, so we see the source code on the left, the image on the right, and you can see it's already done that manipulation. So I've got thumbnail ID and so on. We can add some additional text, some additional content to the end of this URL to adjust the size of that image. So we can say @sz equals And then I can put the size using width or height or whatever. So I'm going to put width, let's say 400. And we've made that circle much bigger. So again, worth remembering these little tweaks. So we're adding and SZ for size equals, and then W and however many pixels we want that to be wide. There's another little tweak we can do, which is quite handy. It's very popular these days to have sort of curved corners on your images, or circular images instead of square images. Well, if I just jump outside of the quotes here, so we've got the source URL. I'm going to add now a styling command to this URL to adjust how that image looks. I'm going to add the word style equals, and then in quotes we're going to say we want a border dash radius colon, and then how big do we want that border? Let's say 30% radius, and close the quotes. And you can see what it's done is it's put a curve on the corners to give me a kind of a curved radius look. So we get the squircles, I think they were sometimes called, aren't they? A squircular kind of image rather than a circular or a square. If we take the radius all the way up to 50%, we're basically giving ourselves a circle. So I've taken that image that is a square, basically chamfering off the corners, rounding off the corners, and I've left myself with a circle. And that's something that's a very popular approach to do with profile pictures. So you would have seen when we were looking at Anne's profile, the image is very square. Well, nice perhaps to have a circular image. Well, of course, Patronum makes that easy for you. So you can actually add in circular images here. So if we're wanting to insert the profile picture, that's one of the variables that is included in the account, in the directory. If we go to the personal menu here, you'll find on this list, here we go, we've got the photo, and we give you just a standard photo option or a circle option. So if I pop that in, if we then go and do our preview, my mouse really is not scrolling. I can do the preview, and let's go with Anne. We get a circular profile image. And again, I could go in and manipulate the HTML to adjust the size and everything of that. So I could add, no, actually, I'm not sure I can. If we're using a variable, but if I was pulling a URL, I could adjust the size of that. Okay, so that's how we pop in sort of basic standard information. The next thing to look at is getting a bit cleverer, slightly more advanced features, and this is using conditional statements. What this means is we will only show information in the signature if some other information is in a particular condition. So that might be saying, let's only show a marketing message if the user is a member of the marketing team. You'll see that if we pick one of our templates, you'll see how we use this already in some cases. Let me just grab this one, we'll pop this in. You see here we've got a mobile variable. Well, what if the user doesn't have a mobile number? Do we just leave that field blank? If we do leave it blank, what about the little M beforehand? We're going to end up with a signature with just M and then blank. If we have a look at the source code of this, you'll see, let's find mobile on here. Is it, there's an email, job title, email. I might see it further down, that's fine. Here it is, mobile, right at the bottom here. So here's where we put the M for the mobile number, and then here's where we've got the variable for the mobile number. You probably still can't see, can you? I'm in the way. Hold on, let me move this over like that. Okay, so down at the bottom, where I've highlighted here is where the variable is, and here's where the M is. But we've surrounded this, might be a bit hard to see because of all the other content in here, but we've surrounded this with a code here that says, if not empty mobile, then do these other bits and pieces. And so what that's looking for is if the mobile field is not empty, then I will carry on and I'll implement the rest of the HTML content until I come across the end of the closing if statement. So once again, we provide an easier way of doing that rather than having to edit all the HTML, so long as you know what content you want to put in. So let me just come out of yeah. I have to widen it up again so I can see what I'm doing. What's going on with my mouse? There. So let me just empty this all out again. So we've got a nice clear starting position. And you'll see we've got a button on the toolbar here called Conditions. When I click that, it gives me a dialog box that I can fill in. And what I'm looking for here is the top bit is the if statement. So if a particular field, in the case we were looking at there was mobile, and the condition is, well, I can say it contains a particular text, it's empty, or if it's not empty, then what do I want to do? I want to insert some text here. Now, this is where you need to know what the variables are, because we don't give you haven't got access to the toolbar in this little window. So, you need to know that it's, well, double curly brackets, mobile as the variable name. So my advice here is to create the text first, the content first in the signature editor, and then paste that into the conditions editor. So let's say if I want to, put in an image that's only for people in the marketing department. I could, what I would first of all do is, let's say, use my drive picker as before, use this sale item here. Okay, and that's going to give me a nice sale now on kind of thing. I will go to the source and copy that content. In fact, I may as well cut it because I want that on the clipboard. Now, I only want that to appear for people who are in the marketing department. So I can go to my conditions button now, and I can use the attribute of department, and I'll say the department must contain the word marketing. And if it does contain the word marketing, I'll paste in that URL, that text that I copied before. I can also put an else statement in here. So if I don't want it to display that image because this person is not in the marketing department, what do I want it to display? Well, in this case, I'm just going to leave that blank. Excuse me. So there we go. So now when I try my preview down the bottom, Anne is not in the marketing department. So we don't see the image for her. But Dean is. So if we choose Dean, we see that image now appears. So you can see you can get quite sophisticated here. Where at the beginning I said you could create a policy for each department or each organizational unit, you could do that, and that might be the best way to approach things because you'd have a fairly simple email signature to manage. It's conceivable that you could also have one big signature for everybody, and within that signature you've got lots of if statements that says if the department is this, then put this part of the signature in. If the department is something else, put that part of the signature in, and you could have just a single signature that applied to everybody. Not sure I'd recommend doing it that way, just for maintenance sake. Sometimes it's easier just to have smaller policies that are each doing just one thing, but it is quite conceivable. And if we have a look at the source code now, you'll see exactly what it's done. It's a bit clearer to see. We just need to put the opening thing in there. There we go. So much clearer when we've only got the one statement to look at. So what we're saying here is we use the HTML commenting method of the greater than sign and the exclamation mark and then the dashes. So that is saying the rest of this bit is a comment, so it doesn't get displayed on screen. And then we say single open curly bracket if, and then our statement department contains marketing, close the curly brackets and then close the comment. And then what do we want to display? And then lastly, we have a closing if statement, again, contained within the HTML commenting brackets. And if we wanted to have an else as well, we could put an else in between here. So put a mark else, close that comment off. And then put in, I don't know, something else, something else there, and close off my else. Like, what am I doing? Slash else. Something along those lines. Can't type, but you get the idea. And then that's going to, no, it's not. No. I'm getting puzzled. I've got to have the curly brackets. Else. Like so. So yeah, that's going to, still can't type, look. Else. So that's going to put the word something else if the person is not in the marketing department. Okay, wipe all of this out. So let's just finish off by choosing one of our standard templates. This is really awkward when I've only got half a screen. Here we go. Bear with me. There we go. And we'll choose a decent looking one. Something like that, let's say. Just pop that in and you can see how the whole thing kind of pulls together there to create a signature. So we've got a combination here of personal information, including job title, addresses, and all the rest of it, and then company information, including the URL, all the social bits and pieces, and so on. And then that policy would apply even if a user changes their own signature manually. This policy will reapply your standardized policy and ensure that they can't sort of deviate from your standardized branding. Okay. I think that's probably about all there is to say. If anybody's got any questions, you can pop them in the comments. Oh, I see there's one here already. Can you combine dynamic groups to apply these policies? Well, yeah, so if I go back to the workflow section here, where I was using a organizational unit, if I were to use a group instead, we are just using the standard groups that are available in, I've got a group called Scotland group here. We're just using the standard groups that are available in your Google Workspace. So if you've set that group up as a dynamic group in Google Workspace, then absolutely this method would apply to that dynamic group. Now, these policies update on or they apply on a regular basis, and depending on the policy type, the schedule can be slightly different. We have to vary them to make sure that we're not overloading any API calls and that kind of thing. So you just need to be aware that maybe your dynamic group is updating at one schedule and the signatures are updating on a different schedule. This policy is updating on a different schedule. So just because you've changed the membership in your dynamic group doesn't necessarily mean that the signature is going to be changed instantly. But yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any more questions? think it's probably safe to say that one of the benefits here of using Patronum is that we do use all of the Google APIs. We don't try and sort of reinvent anything here. What we're doing is just giving you an easier way of getting to those APIs. So when we're doing email signatures here, we're actually talking directly to the Google API and setting the signatures directly in there rather than sort of adding something on later. There are some solutions that will then intercept the emails and try and add a signature on during the email flow, which is kind of a messy way of doing it. Okay. Like I said, we're going to keep these how-to videos as sort of bite-sized, digestible bits of content. If you've got any other topics that you want to cover, we'll definitely be covering things like the offboarding process, making sure that accounts are tidied up and secured through the offboarding process. Contact sharing, things like that, which are really useful and powerful features, as well as the drive compliance stuff, which is relatively new to Patronum, so it's probably something that a lot of people want to learn a little bit more about. So if there's no more, I shall leave it there, and thank you everybody for your time. See you on the next one.